Hi, and welcome to a lecture on inheritance, which is the next thing you should know about object-oriented programming, which is how we share data and methods between classes so that we don't have to type as much. Warning, you really should read chapter 11 of the textbook before you watch this video. Please go read it, then come on back. Okay, so this objective is kind of obvious. We're going to learn about inheritance, and then we're going to learn how to apply it. That's really the thing. But inheritance is really just about sharing data and methods, that's, attributes and behavior between classes in an inheritance relationship. And the reason we call it inheritance, it's like, I have hazel eyes because I inherited them from my mother. So, she shared her genetics with me. I have those genes inside me, and those genes are mine as much as they were my mother's. So here's our problem. We have those two questions, the true-false question and the multiple choice question inside our code, and they're essentially the same thing. They're both questions for a quiz. They have the same methods. They have almost the same data. They have different string representations, but they're essentially the same thing. They both are the same category of thing. They're both questions for a quiz, both of those different types of classes. So it would be great if we could remove the duplicate data and behavior, which makes our code simpler. Because if we have duplicate code in places that is essentially doing the same thing, like it's doing it the same way for our ideas, then we should be able to remove it and put it in one place so that if there's a bug or we need to add more functionality, we only have to change it in one place. Object-oriented languages like Python and Java and C# and C++ and Ruby and R, Common Lisp, they let you extract common data and behavior methods into another class. So you create another class and then you tie those two classes together through a relationship called inheritance. And that parent class, the class that you move that stuff into, the child class that's inheriting from it, it gets all of that data and all of those methods. Let's look at the similarities and differences between the true-false question and the multiple choice question. Both of them have question text, so they both have text for the question. Both of them have a place to store the correct answer, whether it be true and false in one or A, B, C, or D in the other. Both have a response that we save. That's the thing that the person types in who's taking the quiz. And both calculate the answer in the same way. They compare the response with the answer. And if they're both the same, then they're true. And if they're not the same, then it's false. That means that it's not a correct answer. So those are the similarities. Now, what are the differences between the two? They have different string representations. The true-false one just shows true or false and then the statement. And then the multiple choice question has the text of it, and then it lists out those options. And let's talk about those options. The difference is the multiple choice question has extra data associated with that list of options that are available for the question. We can take those similarities and put them into another class, and we'll just call it the quiz question class, which is a more general class. It's not a specific kind of question like a true-false question or a multiple choice question. It's just a general idea of a question. And what does it have in it? It has the text and the answer because that's common for both of them. It has a set response maybe where we set that response. And then it has that is correct where we set that is correct. So we can extract all of that out of our true-false question and our multiple choice question and just put it into its own separate class, quiz question. Once we have that, we can take our true-false question and we add parentheses here and we say, these are the base classes. This is the base class. This is the inherits from class. So true-false question inherits from quiz question, which means that all of the stuff that's over here is like copied over into this one when we create it. So true-false question has a text and an answer and a set response method and an is correct method. All of that, it's like it gets copied over here and it fills out this class with a whole bunch of extra stuff. And then, the stuff that's unique to it, like the string representation of it, That just shows that's the special sauce for this subclass, okay? So this is known as a parent class or a base class. This is known as the subclass, and it inherits from that parent class. What's important to note here is that this is called an is-a relationship. The true-false question is a quiz question, okay? So quiz question is the more general idea, like vehicle, and true-false question is more specialized, like car or motorcycle or motorboat or super yacht, more specialized, more specific versions of the vehicle. This is a more specific kind of question than just the generic quiz question. So this is what our true-false question looks like. And this is what our multiple choice question looks like. Again, the quiz question stays the same. It's the same base class. It shares its text and answer and its response, and it's incorrect. It's like all of this is copied over here into this class for us. Like, it is not copied over. I just want to be really clear about that, but it's like it copies it over. And so now we have our initializer with the text and the answer and the choices. Well, the text and the answer, that belongs to the quiz question. You can see that here, text and answer. And so what we end up doing is we end up doing this super parentheses thing, init text answer. And what that does is it calls that function in the parent class. This is really weird, this whole super thing going on here, but that's just the way we do it. If we didn't do this, if we just had self choices in here, then text and answer aren't used. And so they wouldn't be saved anywhere. So we have to pass those. We have to call another function. We call this init function of our super class over here. Again, this is a general class. It's called the parent class. It's called the super class. It's called the base class. And this over here is our specialized class or our child class or our subclass, okay? So multiple choice question is a quiz question. It's a specialized, a child, a sub version of quiz question. And so we use its function, its initializer here. We pass in that text and that answer, and it gets sent over there. And then we save choices inside, okay? And then again, we have our own special string. This is a different version of what we had previously. There's not a for loop. There's a list comprehension. Same thing, okay? So let's go ahead and actually do this in code. So here I have these two classes side by side. I've split my editor so that I can see both of them, okay? Because I want to look at the differences, and then I want to be able to create the class, the parent class that has the common stuff, okay? So I'm going to split my editor one more time like this, and I'm going to make this, let's see, I'm going to plop this down here on the bottom maybe. Can I do that? I was hoping that I could get a nice split. I'm going to do it like this. Boom. Okay. So here's my multiple choice and here's my true false. Okay. So first I'm going to look at the initializer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new class here. Whoops. I'm going to go ahead and create a new class called quiz question. Okay. And this quiz question is going to contain the common stuff between these. Okay. So this has a text and this has an answer. I'm not looking at the right-hand side. I'm looking at the left-hand side. Self._text, self._answer, self._text, self._answer. So my base class, which, will be copied into these child classes, I want to put the common stuff here. So I'm going to do def init like that, self, text, and answer. And then I'm just going to set that. Self.text is equal to text. And self.answer, whoops, I'm going to do underscore there, is equal to answer, okay? So now I have, whoops, not underscore answer there, like that. So now I've got this init here, which is going to contain the text and the answer inside the quiz question, which means I won't need it here and I won't need it here. Instead, what I will do is I will pass that on to the parent class. I'll do that weird super thing. Okay, So if I go ahead and I do that, I'm going to go ahead and inherit from quiz question like that. And over here, whoops, I'm going to scroll down a little bit like that. And over here, I'm going to inherit from quiz question like that. So I've inherited from quiz question in both of these. So what I can do here is I can just pass on the text and the answer to this here. So what I'm going to do, because this now inherits from quiz question, it's like these things here, these two things here will be copied into this class for me as long as I call super, as long as I do the super stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call super like that dot init, and I'm going to pass in. You see, it already knows. It knows that this needs a text and an answer here. I'm going to go ahead and pass in the text and the answer. And now I don't need to save it in here. I don't need to actually put that in here. I don't need to assign it because it's being assigned in the base class. And everything that's here, everything in the base class, I'm going to be able to see in this child class, okay? Over here, I've got text and answer and choices. I need to still keep choices here, but text and answer can go to the base class. So again, I'm going to do super.init like that, and I'm going to paste in, I'm going to send off the text, but I don't want to just send off answer. I want to send off answer.lower because that's how my multiple choice question thing works. I just want to make sure that it's a lowercase. So I'm going to send off answer.lower, and then that becomes lowercase here, and that's what gets stored inside here. And we'll see this in all of the debugger stuff. So now I've set the text and the answer and the choices and the text and the answer here. And it's like, once again, because this inherits from this, it's like this gets copied into here when I call that super. And because this inherits from this, when I call super init, it's like it gets copied into here. Okay, so text and answer are going to exist on those objects because they have a common base, they have a base class, which is setting that stuff for us. Now let's take a look at set response, okay? Let's see if these things are the same. So I've got set response here. They both do lower, but now it's doing some weird stuff. And these set responses here, these are unique to each one. Even though they're both doing lower like that, what they're doing after that is, setting some sort of letter or setting it to a Boolean value. I've got to keep those things separate. There is no common thing. Even though there's a common line, I can't just take that common line out. I mean, I could, but it doesn't make any sense to. So I'm just going to leave these alone. Now I'm going to go down to is correct, okay? Let's take a look at is correct. These are the exact same method and they do the exact same thing. And when I say they do the exact same thing, I don't mean just the code. I mean the idea. They are comparing that the response and the answer in each of these questions are the same. So regardless of whether it's a true-false question or a multiple choice question, the is correct acts the exact same way. So down here, I can create a method, diff is correct like that. It's going to take self and it's going to return self.response like that is equal to self.answer. And so because these inherit here, I don't need to define them anymore. I can just delete them. I can delete these because it's like is correct. That because it's in this base class, when I create a true false question that inherits from this, it's like this entire method gets copied into here. And because quiz question is the base class here, it's like this entire method gets copied into here. It doesn't really get copied, but it's like it gets copied, okay? And so then finally, we have these string methods. We've got this for printing the multiple choice question, and here we've got this one. These are different. They are radically different. So that means that, I can't, there's nothing really to pull out. There's nothing the same to pull out into this quiz question class, okay? So now that I've done this, I've created a base class right here, quiz question, which stores the text and the answer. And now this one inherits from quiz question. And so it will have a text and an answer because I call super init. And then down here, because this has quiz question and it's a child class, a specialized class, because I call super init, that means it's going to be set on there, text and answer. And then down here, because both of these have is correct, multiple choice question has this method and true false question has this method because it's like it gets copied because it's inheriting it. It's inheriting it from the base class. Okay, so now that we have all this set up, I just refactored this code, but that doesn't change anything down here. All of this should still run the same because I haven't changed the behavior. All I've done is change the way things are getting stored. And technically, I have fewer lines of code now, which, whatever. Lines of code is not necessarily the best way, but let's go ahead and run this and make sure that I haven't messed anything up. So what's the color of the sky? I'm going to say blue, and the sky is neon green. I'm going to say that's true. And you can see things still work out just fine. So let's take a look and see how this runs. Okay, I'm going to do two places here. First, I'm going to go inside my multiple choice question right here, and this init. So we're going to look at how it calls super init. And then also I'm going to put right here on the is correct. Okay, because that is shared by both classes, both the multiple choice question and the true false question. But even though they're different objects, even though they're different classes, self points to the object. So the object itself is going to be a multiple choice question object, or it's going to be a true false question object. Okay. So self always points to the object, not the class. So once we have this, let's go ahead and run this in Python debugger. And so it's going to get here to this breakpoint. Boop. So now we're initializing. Let's see where we are. We're down here in our, we're way down here in our module right here. And it's just called this multiple choice question thing. Okay. So if we look inside, if we go, I guess this is in the wrong place. I need to put my breakpoint here. It's the first line. So I'm going to continue. So here we are. So we're inside the module, inside the main function, we're creating this multiple choice question. And now we're inside this init method. Okay. So what happens here when we call super init? Well, it looks at the base class, the super class, the quiz question class, and it says, I'm going to call the init method. And so what happens is it transfers control from here up here to this init method. Okay, so that's what should happen on the very next step. Boom, there it is. And so now you can see self, the object is still a multiple choice question. It's not a quiz question, it's a multiple choice question. And so when I do boop and come back down here, we can see inside of self, that now has an answer and a text on that multiple choice question. Even though this is inside the quiz question and I'm setting self.text and self.answer, you have to remember, self points to the object, the thing that's being created. And the thing that's being created here is a multiple choice question. It is not a quiz question. It is a type of quiz question, but it is not a quiz question. It is a multiple choice question, which is a quiz question. It has that is a reference. And so if I go to the next line here, self.choices, then as soon as I boop on that, I can't see it. So let me boop one more time. So quiz. So if I look inside here, if I look inside this quiz here, inside questions, come here, you. Oh, I need to clear out this drawing because it's in my way. So right here, if I look inside this quiz object, here's that questions list. And the first entry is that multiple choice question. And inside there is the answer, the choices, and the text. And what we did, again, we called the initialization of the base class to go ahead and set the common things, text and answer. And that's what's going to happen with our true false question. If I set this here, and if I set a breakpoint here and I run to that, if we look inside our questions here, questions at number 1 is a true false question, and it has an answer in a text. Because when I called this initializer, it called the initializer of true false question, and then it said, I want to take that text and answer and I want to send that off to quiz question, the superclass. And then that took care of setting text and answer for us on that object, on the object that we created, which is a true false question. Okay. So that's where that is. So now I'm inside administer. If I run administer, I have to respond. It's going to be blue. That's going to be false, like that. Okay, now we're inside is correct. How did we get here? We're inside the module. We're called main. Main is now printing quiz.getScore. What does getScore do? If you remember, get score loops over every question and then calls is correct. Okay? Where is correct defined? Well, the question object itself is a multiple choice question object. You can see that right there. So if we go look at multiple choice question, is correct defined here? Do we see is correct? No, we don't, which means that we should go look at the base class. And sure enough, there it is on the base class. It's like this got copied over here, and now we're running it inside there because self. Look at self. Self is the quiz. If we look at question right here, if we go to is correct, if we go to is correct and we're inside here, self is that multiple choice question. It's not a quiz question. That object is a multiple choice question. That's what we created down here. Multiple choice question, not quiz question. Quiz question is just sharing this data and this behavior for us. And so we can just keep running. And now the second time around, now we're inside is correct inside the true false question. Again, that's because true false doesn't have an is correct on here. So it goes to the base class to look for it. And there it is correct, just like that. So we'll run, boom. So I got a perfect score finally. And so that's how we would go about extracting a superclass or a base class or a parent class or a generalized class, whatever you want to call them. This extracts out the common stuff, the two pieces of data, the text and the answer, and then the is correct functionality, which was identical in both the multiple choice question as well as the true false question. And then we inherited. We said multiple choice question inherits from quiz question, which means it can use this initializer and it can use this is correct. And the same with true false question. And so that's how we extract to a base class. That's how we find common code to put inside a base class, and then we can inherit it. All right, so now that we have this inheritance, let's add a new question type. Let's do a fill in the blank question, which will have a text for the prompt, a correct answer, and then it should figure out if the response is the same as the answer in a case insensitive comparison, much like we do with A, B, C, and D. We make it lower. So what we want is something almost identical to true false question and the multiple choice question kind of put together. So let's we want to add a new question to this. This is the whole thing about adding new stuff. So let's do it. Let's code it out. So here I am back in my code. I've got this base quiz question class and the multiple choice and the true false. What I would like to do now is have a fill in the blank. So I have a class fill in the blank question, and I want it to inherit from quiz question because remember, it needs a text and it needs an answer, just like our other questions do. So def init, and then our self, text and answer, like that. And so once we have those, we'll call super.init, and it says I need to pass in the text and the answer. So I'll do that. And so now I have a fill in the blank question, which is a quiz question, and it's a child. The fill in the blank is a child of quiz question. We could say it's a sibling of these others, but we don't often use that term. Okay, so we have that. Now we need to be able to print it out. So let's do a def string self like that. So how do we print out a fill in the blank, right? So let's go ahead and return fill in the blank like that, and then we'll do plus self.text. So that'll get the text value. All right, so we have that. What's the other thing? We need to be able to set the response, which is something that we do, self and response. We want this to be like case insensitive. So we need to do a little bit of data cleansing. So let's go ahead and do something like self.response is equal to response.strip.lower, like that. And then up here, we'll also do answer.lower because we want to lower that answer. We want to make that answer lowercase so that, if I type in foo and somebody types in all capitals, foo, then we want to make sure that it's all lowercase. So now we have this fill in the blank question. It uses this. It has an is correct method because it inherits from that. It has the set response and the string. What else is there? Set response and string. That's it. So now we should be able to use this fill in the blank question down here. So let's go ahead and add a new question. So quiz.add question, and we're going to do a fill in the blank question, and that needs a text and an answer. So let's go ahead and do the text. Let's see. The sky is bloop, 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 like that, okay? And the answer should be blue, like that. The sky is blue. So now when we call quiz.administer, it's going to use this fill in the blank question to do that. So let's go ahead and give this a run and see what happens. So we get what is, the color of the sky. We're going to say B because we know that. True. The sky is, and I'll do all uppercase blue. Boom. I got 2 out of 3 because this is not true right here, right? So we got that one correct and we got this one correct because capital B blue is the same as this blue, but all lowercase. So let's run it again. Boop. So B, false. The sky is green, like that. My score is 2 out of 3 because this one is true, and that one is wrong. The sky is not green. So you see, I was able to add a new question type here with just the very specific, like this is what I need, and this is what I need for this. But then the common stuff lives up here inside quiz question. So I'm able to use a parent class. I'm leveraging the parent class's behavior down here in my child class without having to type everything over and over and over again. I don't need to have an is correct method in every single one of these. So now let's add another question type, which is like a multiple choice question. It has text for the prompt, but it has 2 or more correct answers. Multiple choice questions only have 1 correct answer. So this is like that, but it has more than one that you can choose that has to be correct. And then the open question is, how do we get multiple responses? How do we get that? So we're going to have to sort of like figure this out as we go along because this obvious our requirements here haven't given us enough. Normally, if we were on the job, we would talk to like somebody who knows things like a project manager or a product manager or our customer. And we'd be like, hey, I got some questions. Like, do you want them to be able to enter the responses one at a time? Is it okay if they just enter them all at once? Is it okay if we use spaces? That kind of thing. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and figure this out, okay? So here I am back in my code, and what I want to do is I want to create this thing. It's called a, class multiple select question, like that, okay? And it's also going to be a quiz question. But now, just like the multiple choice question, the multiple choice question here had text, answer, and choices. But instead of answer, now we want answers. Does that make sense? We want answers. And then we want to have the choices that we can then display. So, and we kind of want it to like print out like this as well. We want it to like show us the text and then do this. Maybe we should inherit from multiple choice question. So let's do that, okay? Let's try that out. So instead of doing multiple select question, quiz question, let's inherit from multiple choice question. The one thing that's different between a multiple choice and a multiple select is the response. So let's specialize set response here, okay? Self response. So what this is going to do, inside our multiple choice question, right down here, we already have a set response. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want my own set response specifically for this class, okay? So what it's going to do, because I'm declaring it here, it will not use this one. This one won't get copied, even though this is the child or the parent class. This will get copied. This will get copied. But what won't get copied is this, because I'm declaring it by its, I'm overriding it is what I'm doing, is I'm saying I've got my own special version of it here. Okay. So we're going to do that. We're also going to set up our init def init like that, self, and we have text and answers and choices, because we want answers to be more than one thing. Now let's say answers is they give us a list or something like that. What we want is a set of answers. So whatever they give us, we want to turn it into a set. So what we'll do is we'll call super.init like that. And what we're going to pass in, because remember, we're inheriting from multiple choice question. So that means its initializer has text, answer, and choices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in my text, answer, and choices, text, but instead of just answer, I'm going to pass in set answers. And that's going to be the answer. That set is an answer. And then I'm going to pass in choices, okay? So now my multiple select question is going to have a set inside there. Now this response, what I want to do is I want to take this response and maybe I want to split it on spaces. I think that's a good idea. So let's do responses is equal to response dot strip. Let's go ahead and strip it first, and then we'll split it on spaces like that. We don't even need to do that. Split like that. So now we have some responses. And what we want to do is we want to set self dot responses equal to a set that contains those responses. So if they pass in something, if our string comes in like this, A, C, D, like that, it will take that and split it into A, C, and D, and then turn that into a set. If they pass in A, C, and D like that, it'll split it into A, like that, and then it turns it into a set. And so all of the duplicate stuff goes away, and then we can just, figure out whether or not it's good, okay? So this is my multiple select question. So I'm going to go ahead and add that down here to my quiz. So down here in my quiz, I'm going to do quiz.add question, and it's going to be a multiple select question, which needs a text, which is, something like select all of the names, that begin, that's not begin with A, like that, like A, okay? So this is going to be a pretty easy one. And so let's say our choices, the answers are going to be A and B, okay? And then the choices that we give it are going to be Asa, and then Alan, and then Nor, and then Super, okay? So those are our choices there. And don't worry about that. It's just saying, I don't know how to spell that. Okay, so A and B are the correct answers here. So we need to be able to enter A and B for this to work. Rather than running all of these questions again, I'm just going to go ahead and comment these out like that. That way I don't have to answer all that other stuff first. So here we go. So it's like, oh no, you done broke stuff, Curtis. So let's look at our error. Here it says superinit answer dot lower. Where is that? That's inside. Our set object has no lower. Where is that? That's in line 36. So let's go to line 36 here. And that's inside our multiple choice question. Remember, we had our answer dot lower here, which takes this answer and turns it into answer dot lower. So how can we do this so that our answers are always lower, always lowercase? There's an interesting thing that we can do. We're going to use is instance. So if is instance, and so what we're going to say, if the answer is an instance of string, then we want our answer equal to answer dot lower, okay? Otherwise, elif is instance, answer dot answer is a list, like that, then we want our answer to be equal to, and what we're going to do is we're going to loop over that. A dot lower for A in answer. And so once we have that, now we can do this. So what we're doing is we're turning answer into its lowercase. If it's a string, we're just going to call lower. If it's a list, then we're going to go ahead and call lower on each answer inside it. And then we just set that there. So let's go ahead and run that. There we go. Select all the names that begin with A. So I'm going to enter A and C. Boom. Boom, it dies. Why is this? It says here, multiple select question has no attribute response. Did you mean responses? What a great question. So let's go down here and look. What did I put in here? I put in self.responses. But if we look at our parent class, return self.response. So I named this incorrectly here. So self.response, the response is this set, okay? So now that I fixed that error, let's go ahead and run it. So I'm going to say A and C, and that's, my score is 0 out of 1. Okay, so this really should be like A and A and B. So let's try A and B. My score is still 0 out of 1. Why is that? That should be true. If we come over here and we look at, this is where getting like all of our methods together. So I know this is a bug in multiple select question. So when I go to multiple select question and I look at the set response, which is, the thing that handles response, I'm taking this and I'm splitting it into different letters. But if I do A and B, then that splits into a list of A and B like this, but I want those lowercase. Remember, I want those lowercase. So I need one more thing here. I need to be able to take that, and I'm just going to do, A dot lower for A in that list that comes back. So now I'm turning all of my responses that a human typed in into lowercase. So if I run this now, I can type A and B, and I still don't get it right. So let's figure out why this isn't right. So at this point, I'm like, why is this not right? And so this has to be something that's going on in the is correct, right? So inside is correct, when it's comparing the response and the answer, they're not the same. So let's go ahead and set a breakpoint here and run it, and we'll debug this. So I'm going to say A and B. Oh, I didn't debug it. Whoops. So let's do the Python debugger. So now that's all started up. So I'm going to type in A and B. And so now here I am. I'm on this self.response and answer. So let's take a look at self here and see what's going on, okay? If I look at self, answer is the set A and B, and response is lowercase a and lowercase b. So for some reason, the answers, the things that I'm passing in here, these are not getting lowercased. Why is that not happening? So now I need to figure out why that's not happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to multiple select question, and I'm going to look at this. Okay, I'm going to look at here's set answers. Look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go inside this. Okay, I'm going to pop inside here. I'm going to stop this debugging session, and now I'm going to do another debugging session, and I've got to figure out why that A and B aren't working. So here I am. I'm on super init, and I'm passing in this set of answers. The answers that are coming in is A and B. I'm turning that into a set. I'm going to step inside here. And so here I am inside instance answer. And so answer is not it's not a string, and it's not a list. It's a friggin' set. I passed in a set here to where I'm setting those things. So it's not a list. I need a set. Okay, so if it's a set, I need to do this right here. So now I'm going to be doing this for a set. So now I'm going to be running that. I'm going to go ahead and make a set out of this list, okay? Because I need those sets to be the same. I need this to be a set because when I create this thing here, I'm creating a set and I'm doing a responsive set. So I can only compare a set and a set. That's really what I'm looking for, because that comparison here, if is equal, I'm comparing those two things. So here I'm going to create a set, and I'm going to use this list comprehension to turn it into a list of lower cases and then turn it into a set. Okay, so now that I've got that, let me go ahead and run it. So A and B, my score is 1 out of 1. If I run it and I say A and C, my score is 0 out of 0. If I run it and I say A, B, C, and D, it's 1 out of 0. And so if I say B and C, 0 out of 1. And again, if I do A and C and A and C and A and C like that, 1 out of 1. I did not mean to do that. I meant to do A and B, A and B and A and B and A and B like that. My score is 1 out of 1 because it's taking this and turning it into a lowercase set of the letters, which will just contain A and B. So in this case here, rather than inheriting from quiz question, I identified that this multiple select question is exactly like the multiple choice question, except I have a set of answers and not just one answer. And so I needed to take the response and split it and lowercase those things. And I got those responses, and I turned those responses into a set. And if it's equal to this set of answers that I've got, then boom shakalaka, everything works just fine. So what I'm saying is a multiple select question is a multiple choice question. It is a type of multiple choice question, and a multiple choice question is a type of quiz question. And we're using is instance in here to look at this. So is answer an instance of the string class? If so, just call lower. Is else if instance as answer an instance of the set class? If so, go ahead and loop over it, do a list comprehension, turn it into a list of lowercase letters, and then turn that into a set for the answer, okay? So this is instance allows us to look at a variable and figure out whether or not it belongs to a class, okay? And that's interesting for this because if I come back down here, here's my multiple select question, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and take this, I'm gonna paste that out. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create this question. Sorry, I'm gonna create this question like this. I just wanna show you this is instance thing, okay? So I've got this question and I don't wanna care about that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna print is instance question and then multiple select question. We know that's true because I'm creating that specific kind of object there. But then, is it also a type of multiple choice question? And then also, is it a type of quiz question? Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And we should end up with 3 trues. And we do, because this question here, which is a type of multiple select question, it is a object that came from multiple select question. It is an instance of multiple select question, but it's also an instance of multiple choice question and an instance of quiz question. And this idea here, where we can create our own, our own methods that override methods in the base class, and the fact that we can say, is this an instance of all 3 of these things? This is what's known as polymorphism. Okay, so this is the polymorphism that we get from inheritance. And this is supposedly another object-oriented programming pillar. Polymorphism. The fact that we can treat question like a multiple select question, a multiple choice question, or a quiz question, it has many morph shapes, many shapes. It can be any one of those 3 kinds of shapes. In summary, a class inherits its attributes and methods from another class. That's what inheriting is, okay? So it's like it copies the attributes and the methods from the base class into the child class. The base class is the class being inherited from. That's terminology. Base class is the class it's being inherited from. The subclass is the class that is inheriting, okay? So we saw a whole bunch of different inheritance kind of stuff. We also have other names for the base class are parent class, superclass, generalized class, base class, and then other names for subclass, the class that is inheriting. This here is child class, specialization, or specialized class. You'll find all of these words being used to describe this, okay? And so back over here in our code, and I'm gonna draw some diagrams, draw a diagram here, which we'll learn about more in the next lecture about UML. But this quiz question like this is the name of the class. So this is a class, okay? So we put that inside a rectangle. Now what inherits from quiz question? Well, multiple choice question does. And the way that we say this, the way that we draw it is we draw it with an arrow with an open triangle like that. So multiple choice question inherits from quiz question. And then true false question also inherits from quiz question. And then fill in the blank question like this also inherits from quiz question. And then finally, multiple select question, this inherits from multiple choice question. So you can see as we start off here at multiple select question, that is also a multiple choice question and a quiz question. It goes up 2 base classes. It's got 2 different base classes here. So this is the child class and that is the base class. Child car is a more specialized version than the general base class vehicle. And that's inheritance and polymorphism.